You know, on this channel sometimes I can be a real negative bastard. What can I say? It's just easier for me to complain about something than it is for me to praise it. It's just kind of my nature, and I kind of enjoy doing it. But this video is going to be different. Some of you asked for it, and by some I mean two. This video I'm going to be talking about my 10 favorite video games of all time. Stick around, this is Dancing with Ghosts. So, I've played a lot of video games in my day. How the hell does one go about choosing only 10? My criteria for this was 1. The game has to be something that I can still pick up and love to this very day. If I loved it as a child but can't really sit down and play it now, it doesn't count. 2. I tried to be as specific as possible if the game was part of a series. For instance, I love all Mega Man and Resident Evil games, but I forced myself to pick only one title from each series so this list can be as diverse as possible. And 3, this list is in no particular order. So without any further ado, let's get to it. What can I say? I fucking love this entire franchise. For whatever reason, these games have maximum replay value and are just fun as hell to me. I first fell in love with Mega Man on the NES, but by the time the Mega Man X series of games came out on the Super Nintendo, this franchise reached perfection. All the Mega Man games are essentially action platformers where you shoot enemies and find hidden power-ups that make the game more fun. By the time Mega Man made its way to the Super Nintendo, the graphical style had been totally revamped and looked amazing. The Mega Man X games have a darker mood to them as opposed to the Mega Man games on the NES. By the time Mega Man X2 came out, all the great ideas of the past games coalesced into a masterpiece. I love this game so much that my very first real video on YouTube was an in-depth review of this game. So if you want to see how shitty and awkward I was starting out as a little baby YouTuber, just click the card in the upper corner of the screen to see that video.
Resident Evil.
God, I love Capcom. The Resident Evil remake on the GameCube was such an epic game for me growing up, and it is still amazing to this day. Resident Evil was in dire need of the remake treatment, seeing as the original game on PlayStation, though revolutionary at the time, looked like complete garbage by the time the 6th generation of game consoles came around. Resident Evil 2 on the N64 was my very first experience with the series, so that's what prompted me to give the remake on GameCube a try, and boy was my mind blown. First off, I've always loved creepy old mansions, and the whole setting for this game is in a creepy old mansion. Exploring every inch of this place is vital, and puzzle-solving elements make the game much more than just shooting zombies. Which is also great, but that's not really the focus of this game. In fact, many times you're better off conserving your ammo and not shooting a zombie. Being a true survival horror game, you get very few resources, and if you squander your ammo early on in the game, you're basically fucked. Much like Mega Man, I love this entire series, and I've also done a video on the best and worst Resident Evil games. But if I have to choose one, this GameCube remake of the first game is my absolute favorite. I loved this game so much as a kid, and my love for real-time strategy games continues to this day because of it. This game single-handedly got me into PC gaming. I feel like Warcraft 2 is a game that can really only exist on a PC, where hotkeys and mouse clicks are essential gameplay mechanics. In Warcraft 2, your main objective is to build a town, assemble an army, and attack whatever foes lie in the shadows. Over time, you learn to become adept at resource management, strategic building placement, and speedy infantry production. Mastering these skills are essential because the computer will eventually attack you with their armies, and if you're not prepared, they will burn your city to the ground. Command & Conquer is another popular game in this genre that some of you out there might be more familiar with. And oh, would you look at that, I made yet another separate video about this very game that you can check out by clicking the card at the top of the screen. I love this game so much. In fact, the main character Samus was my first tattoo ever. This game influenced me so much in how I thought about art, music, mood. This game is alien, it's creepy, it's full of adventure. The mysteriousness of Planet Zebes, or Zebes, or however the fuck you say it, it just lures you in. How did they manage to make you feel so isolated and alone on a 2D side-scroller on the Super Nintendo? This just speaks to Nintendo's brilliance at developing AAA quality games. The boss battles, the power-ups, the hidden areas, the cryptic nature of this game is just hauntingly beautiful. I will play this game until the day I die. Shigeru Miyamoto came up with the idea for the first Legend of Zelda all the way back in 1986. It was a crude-looking game, but the spirit of adventure was fully intact. But it was only until the graphical capabilities of the Super Nintendo did the Legend of Zelda series truly become a must-play. A Link to the Past is cited by many to be the best game of all time, and I truly understand why. Again, Nintendo is fucking brilliant at developing adventure games. You play as Link, and you have to rescue Princess Zelda from the evil Ganon, a concept that will be repeated ad infinitum throughout the series, but as the old saying goes, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. Battling enemies throughout Hyrule, getting hints from the townsfolk, and navigating through caves, dungeons, and forests just fills my heart with fucking glee. The spirit of adventure in this game is so long-lasting, and is yet another game I will play until my ultimate demise. So for this video so far, I've pretty much just been talking about ancient games that I loved as a kid, and still love to this day. But in 2018, a game just kinda came out of nowhere for me, and it became one of my favorite games of all time. And what's more, it seems like no one really gives a shit about it except me.
Blind, but now I see.
I think for me, this game just did a lot of things right. For the most part, I had skipped the Xbox 360, PS3 generation of games, so open world sandbox style gameplay was still a fairly novel concept to me. Then there's the setting of this game, the great Montana wilderness. Moving around in this game is just relaxing to me. Seeing a distant glade or mountain range and knowing I could easily drive or fly my way to that location was just so freeing. Then there was the story. You're battling against a religious cult. I love religious cults! This was all set in modern day to boot. I tend to not be a fan of games that take place in the distant past. The controls were smooth, the missions were fun, the side missions were fun, there were different regions that would become unlocked, the story was great. I don't know, man, this one just really did it for me, and the expansion game, New Dawn, was great too. I really hope they continue the series in this direction. You have to view the original Mega Man games as a different entity from their Super Nintendo counterparts. These games started it all. They introduced the run and gun, platform jumping, level choosing mechanics that would become staples in all other Mega Man games to come. Most people say Mega Man 2 on the NES is their favorite, but for me, it was Mega Man 4. I believe this was for a few reasons. First, this was one of the only games in the NES series that I couldn't get a hold of as a kid. I mean, I played the hell out of Mega Man 2, 3, 5, and 6, but I could never find the first game or the fourth game. The first Mega Man is rough around the edges to be sure, but by the time the fourth installment hit, some much needed game mechanics had been added that were absent in the previous titles. Mainly, your ability to charge your weapon. You could also slide in Mega Man 4, although you could do that in 3 as well. I really like the boss designs as well in this game. This, to me, was the pinnacle of the NES series of Mega Man before it started getting a little stale.
Greetings, Commander. Requested information follows.
Brought to you by the same company that produced another one of my favorite games of all time, Blizzard dropped StarCraft 2 in 2010 and I was all over it. I had already loved the dichotomy between the Warcraft versus StarCraft games. While in Warcraft, you're in seemingly medieval times, in StarCraft, you're in outer space. The main themes of resource management and skillful crafting are still in play here, but on a much higher evolved level. You get to play as 3 races, either human, Zerg, or Protoss, each with their very own unique structures and infantry. This was and still remains one of the only games I will play online against other people. I think that's mainly because my skill levels were high enough to where I could reasonably face online opponents and win. I lost so many hours of my life to this game battling people from all over the US. If you like real-time strategy games, you have to give this game a try. What is this? Another modern game? 2018 was just hitting them out of the park, apparently. Though I did not play this game until about a year ago, Spider-Man for PS4 finally gave me what I always wanted out of a Spider-Man game, or any game for that matter, a sense of complete freedom in control and movement. When controlling a character like Spider-Man, the web-swinging mechanic has got to be done right or else I am just not interested. But they nailed it on this game. I loved web-swinging around New York City and accomplishing all the missions and side missions. The fighting style has been compared to the Batman Arkham games, and those are fine games and all, but I have to say the fighting style in Spider-Man feels that much smoother and more fun. It's really hard as the old man that I am to be blown away by a video game anymore. I've pretty much seen and played it all, but the control mechanics and movements in this game just put a goofy ass smile on my face. This was also the first game I purchased DLC for, and I am usually very much against DLC in video games, but that's just how much I wanted to squeeze as much juice from this game as possible. I cannot wait for the sequel. This was a difficult list to compile, and a lot of factors had to be weighed in order for me to come up with my 10 definitive picks. But if I'm going by the criteria I set at the beginning of this video, then GoldenEye 007 is definitely one of my favorite games of all time. Not only did I put countless hours into this cartridge, just trying to unlock all the cheat codes by beating the levels under a certain amount of time, but the amount of Game Shark hacks, secret areas I tried to find. Don't even get me started on that secret area in the dam, or the rumor that Oddjob and Mayday actually existed in the single-player campaign. And don't even get me started on the local multiplayer. GoldenEye 007 was the game that informed me on the greatness of first-person shooters. The mission objectives were creative, the array of weapons were diverse, the locations kept things fresh, the story, the strategy, all on a N64 console. A console which was by no means pushing anything that looks impressive nowadays. But even replaying the game today, the crude graphics quickly melt away in your mind once you sink your teeth into that gameplay. I can still sit down with this game and have a blast throwing remote mines at people, sniping people from afar, or side-strafing my way through a tumultuous situation. By the way, Baron Simity's stage still gives me the fucking creeps. I'm sure this game also helped ignite young people's interest in going back and watching the movie that this game was based on, which came out a whole 2 years earlier. Well, there you have it, my 10 top favorite video games of all time. I could have easily done a top 20 list or even a top 50 list, but I have a feeling this video is already going to be running kind of long, so I want to get it over at some point. Let me know in the comment section below, though, what are your 10 top favorite video games of all time? That'll be interesting for me to see what your list is. It'll probably give me more of an indicator of what your age is than anything else, because I'm sure you can tell by my picks about how old I am. So anyway, remember to subscribe to my channel and ring that notification bell. And as always, have a good rest of your night.